Welcome to the Pet Loss Companion. I'm Ken Dolan-Del Vecchio, and I'm here with my friend and co-author, Nancy Saxton-Lopez. And this is a program that we do live on Facebook and YouTube every Thursday at 6 o'clock. We go until usually about 6:30. And it's an opportunity for us to bring forward the kind of information that we shared in our book by the same title. We have a book out. It's called The Pet Loss Companion, Healing Advice from Family Therapists Who Lead Pet Loss Groups. And it's based in the work that we did facilitating pet loss groups for a long time. Nancy did that work for over 30 years. I did it for about 12 years. And we like to hear from you because your stories help us to share with others the kinds of things that are real for people who are going through the loss of a beloved animal companion. And so we're going to share some stories tonight, as we frequently do. And we encourage you to correspond with us. And you can tell us whether or not it's okay to share your story. And if it's not, we'll respond to you through an email. And if it is, then we'll likely share it if we have the time to do that. And sometimes we'll share a synopsis, but a lot of times we're able to read the
whole
story.
email. Or we will take, if it's not, we can take this situation or the experience and kind of work with it in that respect instead of being in detail.
As we're going to do this evening, because we did not get the okay to share the actual content, but the story is such an interesting and useful focus that we're going to talk about it in a more general way. And so you can reach me at kenddv@gmail.com. And you can reach Nancy at nsaxtonlopez. That's nsaxtonlopez at csmpc.com. I'm getting a little tongue-tied. This information is in the description as well. You can also support our program in a number of ways. You can give us a gift through Venmo or through PayPal, or you can subscribe. That information is in the description as well. We're certainly not saying that we want you to do that or you need to do that. We do this program because we want to be helpful, and it's a labor of love, but certainly it's appreciated if you have the means to do that. Also, if you can subscribe on YouTube, that is helpful because that helps other people when they search for content to see the program more readily. So if you could do that, that would be great, and we'll be very grateful for you to do that. We'd like to let you know also that this program is a friend of Dakin Humane Society in Springfield, Massachusetts. You can learn more about Dakin by looking at the description of this program. You can also learn even more by going to dakinhumane.org. That's DAKINHUMANE.org. Dakin also sponsors a monthly pet loss support group on Zoom that I facilitate, and it is going to be this month on Tuesday the 20th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. We run from 6 p.m. until 7:30 p.m. You can go to Dakin and you'll get the RSVP link. There is no cost. So anybody, anywhere across the world can join, and sometimes has joined this program. And it's an opportunity to share with others directly and to get some support and feedback. And so I'd be very happy to have you join me for that program. And I think that's it to get us started, Nancy.
Well, yes. So we're going to talk about two different things this evening. One person wanted to discuss grief of a beloved pet that she got as a child and went through all of her stages of development, all of her school, elementary, middle, high school, and died sometime after that. I think it was probably around
2021, and she got the pet when she was 5.
Right.
So this pet spanned all of that development.
And I think that that's a really good discussion, because once we have that connection to an animal And you see some of these on social media, right? Babies with the pets, the dogs,
Hmm.
more
Hmm.
so the dogs and the kitties, but
Hmm.
the dogs, and how they can love each other and cuddle with each other and all that. And I think that that starts that love and the connection of the human animal bond. And so these pets, these dogs, these cats, or what or whatever animal, are a child's friend, right? Friend,
Yeah.
companion, comrade,
Hmm.
is supportive, a playmate. There's love there. The dog cat always listens,
Yep.
always is there, and is always true and non-judgmental as unconditional love. And so each developmental stage, right? The kids will sit there and they'll play with the dog like, little kids, right? We're going to
Yeah.
have tea and I'm going to put hats on you and all of that. And then it goes into, oh my God, this my friend did today. And I'm
Yeah.
really upset, or a bad breakup, right?
Yeah.
So I'm,
Yep.
and they just love you and they just are there for you.
Yep. I remember when Eric would carry around Jack. Jack was a 13-pound Chihuahua who grew well beyond the size that they're generally supposed to grow. He looked like a little dingo,
That's
actually, and
right. He
he was
did.
the most gentle, loving little soul. And Eric, my son, we brought Jack into our household when Eric was 8, and he lived for 15 years, and he died when Eric was 23, and out of the house. And they were just tight. They were really, really tight, and that relationship meant a great deal to him. A great
Yeah.
deal to him.
Well, and also sometimes, unfortunately, there's strife and difficulty and
Sure.
arguments and
Yeah. Yeah.
intensity with families,
Yep.
and that animal is an escape, right,
Yep.
for them. And they can go into the room and just be with the dog or the cat or the guinea
Hmm.
pig or the gerbil or whatever animal it is, and feel safer, right?
Hmm. Sure.
So,
Understood, supported,
mhm,
loved, all those things.
all those good things,
And
right?
actually, just as a side note, I was talking to Eric's wife, Christina, recently, and she said, a lot of Eric's passwords have the word Jack.
Well,
And I
so do
said, "Oh my
mine.
God,
I have a
all of my
jack right.
passwords have my animals' names in them too." And I hope that's not giving much away, because there's also numbers
Yeah,
and
of course.
symbols and all of that. But that's just something that we do, right?
Well, right, all of my passwords have a name of one of my dogs in it, right? I mean,
Or my child.
my child, right, or my child, right. So, but they mean so much, and they're so comforting to kids as they get older. And I think that that's really special if it's a family that really loves animals, that they get connected. I have pictures of Elisa in the dog bed,
Uh,
with the three pugs, right? So
uh,
she's laying in there too. And I think probably some years ago she went, "Oh my God, you showing that," but now she's a lover of dogs too.
uh,
Ellie, who's our paraplegic little friend, she adores my daughter,
mhm,
adores her. And when she comes in, you could see Ellie's eyes just light up and she starts to cry. And
uh,
so Elisa comes over and picks her up and carries her around, right? And so they have a really strong bond, which is really
and
cool to
what
see.
we got from this particular person who wrote, and we've heard this a lot, is I don't know how to do life
Yeah.
without
Without, right?
this soul by my side. Like, I don't know how to do
That's
it.
this
Like,
connection, this relationship.
I can't. There has never been a time in my life that I recall them not being here, and
Right.
that's really the
That's
crux
profound,
of the
right? For
matter.
her. I mean,
That's
or
really
anybody.
gut wrenching, because
Yeah.
all of a sudden they feel not alone in the world, but bereft of their soulmate in a way that
Right.
they knew. I mean, certainly they knew this was going to happen, but knowing and then actually facing the reality is, of course, these are very different things.
Well, the animals there, the companions there, they're there, and all of a sudden not. And
Yeah,
that sometimes it's very quick. They
yeah,
may be sick, very sick, but they're very sick in a short period of time. Or it could be an agonizing long period of time, or there may be an accident of some sort, and then all of a sudden it's severed, right? And so for that person who's always had that animal in their lives, I just, it would be like severing an arm, or taking away part of their existence, their soul. So I mean,
but we go forward. I mean, we do.
yes, we do.
And if anybody is listening to this and thinking, well, I don't know if I should have a pet in my family for my child if this is what they're going to face, the thing that I think it's important to always keep in mind is that the experience of loving a pet and
Yeah.
then losing them is training for
Right.
life.
Right.
That's what happens in life. And
And also, how much do you get from that animal
yeah, how
that
much did
is
you
so
gain?
worthwhile,
Yeah,
right?
yep,
The connection, the education of emotions, and being with, loving something and taking care of something, and it's definitely worth it. No
yeah. And
matter
how
how
how do
hard
you
it is.
move? How do you move forward? Well, you just have to, right? You
Yeah.
just have to. You just do, and
It's
you
it's
just
it's a
keep
tough
going
one.
through the pain.
We have, yeah, we talked about that last week. We have no choice,
Yeah, yeah,
so, but we always have the choice. For them, it's one lifetime, but for us, it's many lifetimes. So we always have that opportunity to love again.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
Yep.
So,
Okay. So,
so
do we
the
want to move
other,
on to the next topic? Yeah.
yeah, the other one was a woman who wrote us and had suffered the loss of her two cats very close together, and she had a real question about routines.
Hmm.
How do you work with this, right? Especially with us who have animals. I mean, all animals have to be taken care of. All pets have to be taken care of, obviously, but who are very ill
Hmm.
and take a lot of time and energy, to get their medications, and to take them to veterinarians, and to have treatment programs, and so even so, you still have to feed them, you still have to, the dogs you have to walk, there's things that you may need to make their lives comfortable. I mean, we're always here in our household, okay, what this is, I got new bowls, the other day. I mean, those are the things that you start to, it just incorporated into your life, because they're our four-legged babies, right?
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
but the routine, look, routines are important, but I think sometimes for people that have all of a sudden lost their loved one, it might be a little easier if the routine is changed to some
Hmm.
degree, right?
Hmm.
So if you come home at a certain time, and that cat was always waiting for you, or the dog was waiting for you, maybe you don't come home at that exact time, or maybe you come in a different door of the home.
Hmm. Hmm.
Maybe you have to move the furniture around, maybe you don't sleep in your bedroom for a while. There are a lot of things that can just ease you into a different routine, right? Because the routine you were having was being living with this beautiful animal that you had, for how many years, and then as now gone. So changing in routines can be helpful with that
You know,
until grieving is going through.
and as you say that, one of the things that the thoughts that comes to me is that when people hear that, they might say, that sounds like a good idea, but they might not be inclined to actually do it
Mm,
because that's the
possibly.
way people are. We're very, much into the inertia of the patterns that we've been involved with for
Right.
a long time. So, for example, when you say maybe you should come home at a different time, that has to be, you have to force yourself to do that
Yes,
kind of stuff. You
because
have to
you're used to a routine,
yeah,
right?
you have to decide,
Mhm.
okay, maybe I'm going to make a habit of going to the grocery store before I come home from work so that I come home at a little bit of a
Mhm.
different hour. Or maybe I'm going to shift my exercise time or something. You're actually going to schedule what you're going to do differently. I believe that when people are trying to change a routine, the it is very often necessary to plan and force
Yes.
yourself to do it. And so just so if you're going to come in a different door, then maybe you put like a ribbon around the door. You usually come in. So if you happen to
Go up to open
walk
it, you
to
say,
that
"Oh,
door, you
I
see
need to go."
it and you
Right.
say, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna." And because we're such creatures of habit, and we often feel like we can manage to do the same thing and have a different result happen. And when we're grieving and we're trying to make changes, we have to keep in mind that we need to push ourselves to do those things differently.
Mhm. And then at some point, you know, there would be an acknowledgement and an integration of the loss so
Yeah.
that, you kind of can go back to maybe something that you had a routine you did have in the past. Um, but it goes back to what we've talked about a lot, that you really need to take care of yourself the best way you can during this very painful time
Yep.
when you're emotionally distraught and you're very vulnerable, right? Emotionally vulnerable.
And there again, so many people have a heart that we can conceptualize that, but what does that actually mean? It means that I plan out when I'm going to go to bed and when I'm going to get up so that I get
Mhm.
at least 8 hours of sleep, if that's what would help me to feel restored. It means that I plan out my meals so that I've actually got on hand the kind of nourishment that will be beneficial to me. And all of this takes a bit of planning and
Honey.
scheduling, and it's a hard thing to do even in the best of times. So it's something to
Right.
really think about and to plan for when you're going to say, okay, now I'm actually going to focus on self-care.
Right. And every article you read about getting through grief,
Hmm.
that is what they say. Um, you want to get support from those who
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
That's really important. You want to monitor if you're isolated or not, especially for people who live alone,
Who live
right?
alone. Right.
And
Yep.
that they don't have anyone else in the house. I mean, sometimes you can be in the house and two or three people or four people grieve differently. And that's also, kind of a process that's hard. But if you're alone, you want to kind of monitor how much you're isolated.
Yeah, and ask for help and let
Yeah.
people who
Mhm.
love and respect you know that you need them at
Mhm.
this time. And that's also a hard
It's
thing.
okay.
Asking for help is
It is
so
hard. Yes.
difficult for many people. And we're such an individualistic society. We're taught that we should pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and those kinds of things.
Take care
And
of things.
yeah, and when we're grieving, most of us will benefit from being in the company of other people.
Right.
As
You
not
need
not
some
all the time,
social
but at times
social
to
activity.
provide support and connection.
Um, the other thing that has happened that people get really upset with, and I'm not sure at what point you may do this. I use Chewy,
Hmm.
for which is a big company that
Hmm.
sells all kinds of pet products.
Yep.
And I actually got, even though Rosie's been dead 2 years, I actually got a birthday card from her from
Oh
Chewy.
wow, yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
like, I mean, I understood they wouldn't have known necessarily. I
yep,
mean, and but I've seen that happen with veterinarians, right?
yes.
So
Oh,
if
it's
they
happened to me. Yeah, yeah. It's time for Abigail's
right,
for her
or
vaccination, that
Bordedella's
kind of
shot,
stuff.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
And so,
Even
when
though
you
she died
can,
there,
what was that?
even though she died there.
Well, right, right. I mean, sometimes it things are not updated,
Yeah,
right?
it's an easy error to make, I'm sure.
And I'm sure people get really upset with that, right?
Yeah,
Because they're like, oh, because it's, an acknowledgement
yeah.
that their loved one has died. So, and sometimes you have specialty vets. Sometimes you have, it's an ER visit that, you have a euthanasia at ER. Sometimes you do it at home. But if you can, because there's nothing like getting that kind of card in the mail, and you say, oh, even the insurance companies are pretty good about it because they pay the insurance if
Hmm.
you have insurance, right?
Hmm.
But otherwise, it's probably not a bad idea,
To
you
let
know,
them know,
to let them know, to
yeah,
let
to let
people
them know that
know,
they're gone. Yeah, yep,
because that's a shock, right? All of
yep,
a sudden, 6 months go by, and all of a sudden, you have this. Oh, you know, Ellie needs her vaccinations, right?
yeah.
Um, but it's really to acknowledge your grief and to be in it. Now, we've talked about, you know, and taking it in smaller doses, right? You don't want to necessarily be overwhelmed that you can't function, but you need to grieve. So you have these times that you allow that, and you're in it, and then you can move out and do something else. You can get preoccupied, take a walk, or
Hmm.
go to an exercise class, or have a meal, and then when it comes back, you obviously embrace it, but you know and we all know about the ebb and flow of grief, so it comes and goes.
Well, and also sometimes when people, as you said, have been caring for an animal for years, they've been giving them medication every few hours. They've been
Mhm.
cleaning up after them in ways that are very time consuming and energy consuming. They may say, I'd like to change my routines, but I don't even know what to do. Like I have no idea
Exactly.
what to do.
Yeah, but I
And
think that this was this woman's question.
and
I wonder
and
that.
one of the things that I think can help is to remember a long time ago when you were much younger, what did you like to do?
Mhm.
And what were some of your interests? Even as a child, what were some of your interests? Were you interested in art? Were you interested in learning musical instruments? Were you interested in activities with others? Maybe like crocheting
Mhm.
or something, painting or bird watching or nature walking, those kinds of things, and sort of brainstorm. And then again, force yourself to try some of them. Like just say, okay, this week I'm going to go to that ceramics class that I
Mhm.
see. I pass by a ceramics place whenever I go to the grocery store, or I see it advertised on the menus that have all those little advertisements when I go to a diner, and force yourself to do something new
To
and
try
different that you
something new,
think
right.
may spark some interest. And
Mhm.
that's how people rediscover. And just to generalize this, I've heard this from people when they're approaching retirement and
Mhm.
they've
Oh,
been
yes, they're not gonna work anymore.
all in a very demanding career, and they're like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Well, you have to rediscover the
Mhm.
things that stir your heart, right? You have to rediscover those, and they're there. You're a human being. Human beings have interests. We're curious about many things. We have passions that sometimes go to sleep sort of for a
Yeah.
while.
They're there,
And
but they're hidden. They're, covered.
yeah,
You have to.
and so that's, if you don't know, just think way back. And if you can't think of anything, then say, what is something that I might, in my wildest imagining, want to try? Because if you try one thing, you might say, okay, that wasn't what I wanted to do, but it makes me think about maybe something else.
Nothing else. It's really important, and even, it's interesting because even some of those creative endeavors, like if you go to ceramics and you can make a little bowl and you can put little paw prints on them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And your animal's
yep,
name.
yep,
So you could have some mementos that you've made,
yep.
memorials for the animal that's died, you know.
And
Um,
and if your grief is so disruptive to you that you actually can't
do
mobilize yourself,
anything.
then
Right.
you deserve to see a therapist
Exactly.
and have a professional help you sort out how to move forward with your life, how to integrate the loss into your understanding of your life, how to take care of yourself. We all deserve to feel better,
Hmm.
right? And so don't hesitate to get help if you feel entirely stuck.
That's right. That's important to do because it really opens up. Because I have
Hmm.
a young man I'm working with right now who his little dog was killed. And so it's been many months. It happened in March, and he just has not been able to mobilize himself until now. And then he reached out, to talk about these things. And it's been helpful for him to be able to unload all
Yeah.
of that
Yep.
emotion and his feelings about what happened and what's next,
Yep.
in his process. Um, and that's important because nobody has to be alone in this journey. And that's
Yeah.
why we're doing the
Yeah.
work we do, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to be alone. And a lot of people have told us that, we
Yep.
thought we were alone, but no, we listened to your podcast and we know we're not alone,
Yeah.
in this process.
And also, if you come to a meeting like the meeting that I facilitate or any other meeting of that sort, you can ask other people,
Hmm.
how are you getting yourself out of the
Right. How are
pits
you doing? How are
of
you?
the grief when it strikes? Like, how are you?
Mm.
And what you'll hear will help. It may not fit perfectly for you, but it will help,
It will help.
because there's nothing like getting a different perspective from somebody who has a similar kind of experience, has
Experience.
a similar loss that they've
Mhm.
experienced.
It's really just taking one day at a time. I mean,
Hmm.
that's sometimes it's easier to take little steps, like instead of the weeks, the months, that every day and
Hmm.
see how you do. But grief, to end, I mean, grief can, after the learning part of that, I think we've had a podcast on that, is it makes our relationships stronger. If we've been through the grieving process, and some of us have been through it multiple times,
Of
not
course.
just for our
Yep.
companion animals, but for our
Yep.
human people. But it makes our relationships stronger, and we certainly can become healthier with our animals, and so maybe that would continue, and we can become more spiritual.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can
Um,
tell you, in the last group meeting that we had, one of the participants very poignantly talked about how the loss of his beloved dog made him just sort of open up to how important
mhm,
relationships are in
yeah,
general. I mean, it's not like he wasn't aware of that beforehand, but it just really punctuates what these relationships mean to us, and
mhm,
how important it is to give them priority
yes,
when we have them, whether it's our beloved animal companions or our human companions, our family
right.
members, our friends. And so absolutely, grief can
It does some changing
ultimately enrich our understanding of what's most
of
important.
life. I mean, and also the little things don't bother us anymore, right? This is so profound that,
Yeah.
we don't have to talk about who left the toothpaste top off, right? These kind of things that people can get. And you make more of an effort to create memories.
Right.
But the most important one is you love more completely.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
you are able to open up and really embrace,
Yeah.
which is really important.
So, Nancy, as we close, we want to let people know that we're not going to have a program next week,
Right.
but we'll be back the
In
following week,
two
right? So
weeks.
our travel vacation schedule makes it so that we won't be doing this next week, but we will the following week.
And we certainly will. And Ken, it's always lovely.
Same here. Yeah. Have a good couple of weeks, Nancy.
Yeah. A week. Well, that's
Yeah.
good. That's good
Yeah.
enough. All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.